Hello, everyone. My name is Christopher Locke. I'm the IBPA member liaison, and we're doing this webinar series called Get to Know Your IBPA Member Benefits because we want to give everyone an opportunity to learn about the benefits. And I'm very excited today. We are going to be covering MetaComet systems. So here is a more detailed explanation of the current member benefit that they already give, and I'm going to put that in the chat. So if you're watching the webinar on the video recording, you're not able to see the chat, but don't worry, you can go to the link. Okay, so we have an incredible person today who's actually the one who runs the whole thing. So let me read his bio real quick, and then I will give it over to him. So today I'm happy to introduce David Marlin. He's the president of MetaComet Systems. David's been involved in publishing technologies for the last 23 years, and in 2000 he co-founded MetaComet Systems, which specializes in automating the royalty process. David is active in the publishing community, having chaired 2 book industry study group committees, and he's worked close with 200 publishers of all different sizes. David will be speaking today about MetaComet's royalty tracker system, showing you how it can eliminate the headaches of royalties. MetaComet offers a discount to IBPA members, which I've talked about. And again, don't forget, we've got that special discount for everyone who attended this session right here. And it's going to be providing 2 additional free months to members who sign up with MetaComet during that time frame that I mentioned till February 15th. So without further ado, David, I'm sending it over to you. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you, Christopher. So I'd like to start today with a story about our first customer. It's a company named EReads, based in New York. And I had been a consultant in the publishing industry for a few years, and they were one of my customers. And I got a call from them, from the head of EReads, and he was explaining to me, David, we're drowning in royalties. Our bookkeeper is spending weeks every royalty period. Is there some way you can put together a spreadsheet to help us make this go more smoothly? And so I thought to myself, okay, let's take a look at this. And I went in, I studied the problem a little bit. They needed to calculate a percentage of the revenue that came in. That seems pretty straightforward. Okay. Need to pay out every quarter. Okay, that also seems pretty straightforward. Create a nice statement that they could share with their authors. Okay, we can do that in Excel. So I'm thinking, my initial thoughts, yeah, we could probably do this in a spreadsheet. But then I started to dig a little, and I discovered that this is a little more complicated. So today we have just under an hour together, and during this webinar, I'd like to answer 4 questions for you during our time together. The first, is it possible for you to do this by yourself without an automated system? The second question I'm going to answer for you today is it worth it for you to invest in an automated system? I'm going to then answer the question, will it do what you say it's going to do? Another question, what are the benefits I'll get from working with MetaComet and Royalty Tracker? And then finally, can you afford it? And we'll talk a little bit more about your IBPA member benefit that Christopher mentioned with MetaComet as well. I'll be switching today between slides and videos, so please bear with me if there's any bumps there. And as I go through this, I also encourage you to write down any questions you have as they come up. As Christopher mentioned, you can put that right in the chat section rather than the Q&A section. So again, put your questions in the chat section. Again, feel free to ask them as they come up, and I'll pause a couple times during the presentation and just see if any of you have had any questions. So with that, let's start with the first question. Can you do this yourself with Excel? So let me go back to EReads for a moment. As I mentioned, I further studied their problem, and as I really dug in, I came across a few issues. Some of their titles had multiple authors, and they needed to split the royalties between them. That's an interesting complication. They paid different rates depending on what type of sale it was, what channel it came from, or maybe what format it was, ebook versus physical. Thought, that adds some complication. They paid advances, and they needed to recoup those advances from royalties. Another complication. They only pay them if they hit a certain amount. So if they only earned a few cents during a royalty period, they would carry their balance forward. That's another complication. And as I started to put all of these together, I realized royalties, and this is back in 1999, this is a massively complex problem. It is not as straightforward as I initially thought. Let me, if I may, tell you another story about another customer. This one I won't mention because they had some interesting issues. So about a month after getting their data, this was a new customer we started working with a few years ago. About a month after getting all their data in, they generated statements, and typically we do what we call a parallel run to validate their results. So we'll compare results from a prior period that they had already done to what's in Royalty Tracker. So we do this, and they call us up and say there's something wildly off with these calculations. All the numbers are off. So of course, my stress level, all of our stress levels go through the roof whenever we hear something like that. We want our customers to be totally happy. So we go through and we look really carefully, and we're like, these are all looking right. We audited it. We looked at the sales coming in, the percentages. So we went back to them and we asked them, would you guys mind just validating and making sure that what you had done in the past was right? So about a week later, we hear back from them. And as it turns out, there was something wrong on their side, something very wrong. And they actually realized that they had never, for years, probably about 10 years, they had never paid out accurate royalty statements. And so that was a very interesting revelation. And so, yes, it is possible for you to do this yourself in Excel. However, it is fraught with risk, especially as that complexity builds up. So, what our customers tell us after they've been working for us, especially the ones that have been using Excel, is, well, ultimately we can offer you freedom from Excel and all its challenges. Yeah, in the words of one of our customers, Royalty Tracker has made it possible for the first time in my independent press's 20-year history for us to process royalty statements hassle-free and error-free. So now let's go to question number 2. Is it worth the effort to get started with Royalty Tracker and working with us? And so to answer that, I just like to throw another question out at you is how do you value your time? Like many of you, I run a small business, and I've come to learn over the years that there's very little in the business as valuable as my personal time. And it's really hard to put a number on it. It's really hard to put a number on your time. But just as a rough rule of thumb, a number I use is, let's just say you're running a $1 million company, or you're a critical employee at a company like this. You can make a case that your time is worth as much as several $100s an hour. If you're running the company, maybe $500 an hour. So that's basically the first, one of the first questions you should ask yourself is, how do you value your time? And also, how much time are you spending right now consolidating your sales and calculating your royalties? We work with customers that spend a week every month before we come in and start working with them. We have customers that we're spending 6 months every year before we start working with them. Another question when you ask, is it worth the effort to get started, is ultimately, how much time will it take you to get started with Royalty Tracker and automating your royalties? So there's a few different aspects to it. There's going to be training, and usually we'll set up a weekly meeting with you. So you can probably count on that taking about 10 hours of your time. Loading your data in, as a rule of thumb, let's just say you have 50 titles. If you had to do that all manually, that might take you 2.5 hours or so. As a rule of thumb, if you're doing all manual data entry, it takes about 3 minutes per title and contract, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. We have tools to help you with that. But usually we can load a bunch of your data in to greatly speed up that process. And then you'll probably need to spend about 5 to 10 hours testing and validating your results. So the next question that I'd like to cover that I talked about in the beginning is will it do what we say? Will Royalty Tracker give you that level of automation that I mentioned early on. So to answer that, let me show you a little bit about how Royalty Tracker works. So here you're looking at Royalty Tracker's main contract screen. So the way you basically enter a contract is just really straightforward. Here on the left is a list of all your titles. We call them projects in Royalty Tracker. And then just really high level information about each title here. The name of the title, the imprint or business unit, the minimum payment threshold, that's the minimum amount they have to earn. Otherwise, you'll carry that balance forward. The statement frequency. So just some very high level information you enter in. Once you have all your titles entered in, then you'll want to add in all your ISBNs or other product identifiers. So if you have different ISBNs for different versions of the ebook or ebook versus print or audio, you'll enter all of those in. And you see a bunch of data fields in here, but really all you need to worry about is the product ID and the format. That's all you have to enter in. So it's pretty straightforward. So far, pretty straightforward. So then the next part is once you have the title information entered in there, then you just simply enter in all of the royalty recipients. So here on the left is a list of all your royalty recipients. So you can have multiple authors, you can have editors, illustrators, anybody that receives a royalty from this title, you can have, you create an entry for them. And then on the right, you list all the rules for how royalties get paid out. And different organizations have different categories of rules. So some of our customers pay based on the format. Some of our customers based on a channel. Are you selling it through retail? Are you selling it through wholesale? And so sometimes the rates can vary based on that. And a number of our customers just pay out one rate for all their sales. It's the same rate for all their sales. So whatever types of sales you have, we'll set your system up for that. Another thing is here you can also do reserves against returns. That's one of those complexities that makes it really difficult to get this right. If you are keeping reserves against returns, Royalty Tracker can automate that for you. The last part of the agreement or contract that you'll set up are your advances. And in Royalty Tracker, it's really simple to enter in advances. You just go to this adjustment screen, you enter in the amount of the advance, and Royalty Tracker will automatically recoup that advance against the royalties that have been earned. And you can put in any other kinds of adjustments. Like some of our customers like to, they'll offer an index, but they'll charge the author out of their royalties. So you can put that in and this will recoup against the royalties. Or maybe if they wanted a wire transfer and you want to deduct that from their royalties, or maybe they earned a bestseller bonus and you actually need to give them an extra amount. So any of those kind of adjustments, you'd enter right into this screen right here. So pretty straightforward entering in your titles. You just, again, the title, the ISBNs, the author information, and all the royalty recipients and the advances. So let's talk now a little bit about the sales piece, because that's one of the complications. So once you have all your titles loaded in, every month you'll receive sales data. And most of our customers receive sales data from several different sources. So if you're using a distributor, you may be fortunate enough that they're handling everything for you and you're just getting one sale file a month. Most of our customers get multiple sales files every month. And sometimes we have customers that get as many as 60 sales files every month. So you need to combine all that sales data into a single sales database, both so you have a good sense of what's selling, but also for the purpose of paying out royalties. So for that, we have our sales aggregator. And the sales aggregator is really simple to use. You just set up the different types of files that you're going to use. Then you select the file off of your computer. So you'll probably keep, like every month, a folder of those sales as you download them or as they come in. And then once you have them all, you just upload them one at a time into the sales aggregator, and it will automatically consolidate all your sales into a single sales database. It'll give you a summary of every sales file that you've ever loaded in, the amount, the number of rows, etc. And you can always go into that file, review that file and download the original file at any time. So if you ever need 2 years down the road to access a file, you can easily search for it and have access to it at any time. So so that's basically how Royalty Tracker works and how what's involved in terms of your effort in setting everything up and maintaining everything. So before I move on, I just like to stop for a minute and ask Christopher, have any questions popped up at all since?
Not so far. I think you're doing an incredible job of explaining things. Oh, you know what? One just popped up. Very exciting. Okay, give me a sec. So how does the sales aggregator work with IPG statements?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I believe you're getting you have access to the IPG sales data through either CSV or Excel files. And those are just really easy. You set up your IPG sales file type. So the sales aggregator will memorize what that file looks like. And then just every month, you just upload your IPG sales into the sales aggregator. And it'll automatically and then Royalty Tracker will just automatically allocate those sales to the appropriate titles, and royalties will automatically be calculated.
Okay. And the other question someone had was, does the sales aggregator work for consignment arrangements?
So the key with the sales aggregator, I'm going to make a couple assumptions here. So by consignment arrangements, I'm guessing that you probably mean sharing the data with sharing your sales with others. Maybe not in the form of a royalty, but in another sense, sharing the revenue that comes in. And so if that's the question, then yes, absolutely, it can help with that. If it means you're getting sales from a consignment partner or revenue data from a consignment partner, the key will be to get that in an Excel or CSV file. And as long as you're doing that, then yes, you can just upload that sales file into the sales aggregator. Now, sometimes you won't get your sales data in an Excel file. Unfortunately, there's still a few places that will send you your sales data as PDFs or maybe if you're dealing with rights, you'll just get a check in the mail. And in those cases, Royalty Tracker has a way where you can manually enter in your sales data.
Okay.
All right, great. Thanks, Christopher. So I'll stop again soon to take additional questions. So please feel free to throw them in the chat, and then when I pause next time, we'll stop and go through those. Okay, so the fourth question that I mentioned at the beginning: how will Royalty Tracker and how will we MetaComet benefit you? What will it do for you? And ultimately, once you're up and running, each royalty period will be relatively quick and easy. You've already got your contract information set up as I showed you. So now all you have to do is just load those sales files in and view the results. And really, that's mostly what there is involved. And so it just eliminates the stress of dealing with this every period. Let me say that again. It will eliminate the stress of dealing with this every period. And the reason I emphasize that is because that is one of the biggest things I hear from our customers, is that this is just one of the most stressful, anxiety-ridden things they have to do as a publisher, is deal with their royalties. And part of that is just having the confidence that everything is coming out correctly, that you know your royalties are right. That story I told you early on, virtually every customer we work with, when we compare to their prior royalties, there's always mistakes. Royalty Tracker can give you that peace of mind that everything is coming out correctly. So let me dig into that a little bit more. So in order to ensure that everything's coming out correctly, you want an easy way to validate your results. And really just through 3 reports, I'm going to just show you 2 of them today, you can get a really thorough audit that all your numbers, all your royalties are being calculated correctly. Now, it does make the presumption that you're entering your contract details correctly, but assuming that you are, and most people do, and there are ways that we can help you identify maybe anomalies that maybe you made a mistake, then it's really easy to just have total confidence and total relief that everything is coming out correctly. So this report that I'm showing you now, this is called the sales reconciliation report. So every sale that you've loaded in manually or that you've uploaded through the sales aggregator, every line item will have an entry in the sales reconciliation report. For most of your sales, it'll show you the amount of the sale, the royalty that was calculated, the royalty rate that was used. So for every single line item sale that comes in, you can see what royalty was calculated. Some of your sales will have some issues. So every once in a while, you'll load a sale in and maybe you never added the ISBN to the title. So Royalty Tracker doesn't know which contract that belongs to. That's no problem. The sales reconciliation report will give you a nice, simple view of every sale line item that has a problem, and all you have to do is go in there and fix that, and Royalty Tracker will automatically calculate the sale. Maybe you never entered the contract, and that's no problem. You don't have to worry. It acts as this report actually acts as a safety net. You don't have to worry about missing a contract, because if you don't have a contract in there, Royalty Tracker in this report will tell you, hey, there's no contract. So then all you need to do is enter the contract, and Royalty Tracker will recalculate the sale. The other report I'm going to show you today, which gives you that peace of mind, and really this is probably the most powerful and widely used report in our system, is the statement balances report. And you can see over on the right here where it says project balance. This will exactly match what's on your royalty statement. And then all these numbers to the left of that will add up to that amount. And each column of numbers in here, so like the project royalties, for instance, that will precisely match that sales reconciliation report. So if you want to validate this number here, you can just go through, do a search, in this case for the title, A Guide to Simple Royalty Management, in that sales reconciliation report. And if you add all those up, you'll get this amount in this column. And we have similar reports for the project adjustments, the reserves released and withheld. And so you can have total confidence that every number in this report is correct. And once you have that, by having that confidence, you can know that the totals are correct. And these reports will exactly match to the amount on your royalty statement. Again, just that relief of knowing that everything is coming out correctly. So when it comes to the royalty statements, those are just automatically generated. They're always available for you. As soon as you add sales in, even if it's not the end of your royalty period, the numbers on the royalty statements will be adjusted until the end of the royalty period, in which case you finalize the statements and you send them out. And then you have clear, clean, accurate royalty statements. Now, we can get your statements to look however you want. We can customize the royalty statement. This is our standard royalty statement that most of our customers use. It just puts your logo up there. It won't be the MetaComet Systems logo. Don't worry, it'll be your logo, your company name, your address, the author's information. And then it'll just break down the royalty amount by contract term, by agreement term. On the second page, it'll summarize all the information. So it'll total up your royalties, show any reserves if you're using reserves, show any prior balance, and then it'll show any advances and adjustments. And then at the very bottom, most of our statements will also show the life to date amounts. Let me pause here again for a minute, Christopher. Have any new questions come in?
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to the sales aggregator, someone asked, how about PayPal, assuming it's a CSV? PayPal, they said it can be kind of messy with a lot of extra info, so they weren't sure how that works with the sales aggregator.
Yeah, so as long as it's in a CSV file, it'll work. So like just as an example, some other messy files that you may have seen are the KDP file from Amazon or the ACX file. So most of those files you can just load right into Royalty Tracker. It will know to skip like the first 5 lines in the file. A lot of times it's smart enough to know that this is a totals line. If you do bring a totals line in, it'll just show up as an error in the sales aggregator and you can just ignore it. Or some of our customers, they just take those lines out before they load it in. But yes, we can handle most of these messy files as long as they're consistent from month to month and they're in a data format. I have seen, like, there are some crazy files out there, very few. I can only think of one. I won't say who it is. that they'll put like the ISBN on one line, and then there'll be nothing on the rest of that line. And then in the next line, there'll be all the details for that ISBN without including the ISBN. That's one situation that it can't handle. But that one, actually, you can go in and manually adjust that file in a pretty straightforward way and then load it into the sales aggregator. So the short answer is you can set up the sales aggregator to ingest almost any kind of CSV or Excel file that you deal with.
And I think you already answered this one, but just in case, someone said, can the data be exported from the sales aggregator?
Yes. So in fact, we have a few customers that they actually, so yes, you can export the data from the sales aggregator. We dump it out into an Excel spreadsheet or CSV file for you. We have some customers that actually take it from the sales aggregator, put it into their accounting system, and then their accounting system sends it over to Royalty Tracker. But that's like crazy confusing. So I would just let the sales aggregator send it directly to Royalty Tracker. And if you want a separate spreadsheet of that, the sales aggregator will just dump it out into a spreadsheet for you.
And you mentioned the accounting system. So someone did ask, does MetaComet have any ties to accounting systems for tracking reporting?
Yeah, great question. So we can integrate with virtually any accounting system. So probably the most common one, especially for IBPA members, is QuickBooks. So we can set up an export that you can then import into QuickBooks of all your payments. Typically, it'll just be your payment amounts. And for those of you familiar with QuickBooks, it'll create an invoice in QuickBooks, and then you just pay your invoices, which is like paying your authors. We have a lot of customers that work with NetSuite. That's another popular one. Microsoft, that's another popular one, Microsoft Dynamics. So in both of those cases, we can just give you a CSV file that you can, of your payments, that you can load right into those systems. And there's other ways that those systems can integrate with Royalty Tracker as well. So for instance, if you're working with a NetSuite or a Microsoft Dynamics, for instance, or Xero is another one, they will all assign a vendor ID to each author. And so it's very helpful, almost a requirement really, to have those vendor IDs stored in Royalty Tracker. So we do have a field for that. So you can export your vendors into a spreadsheet or a CSV file, and then import those all into Royalty Tracker, and it will update them every time. So if they have a change of address, it'll update that. It'll put their vendor ID in there. And we can also set up direct integration. I usually say that direct, where it just automatically transmits the information to Royalty Tracker. Usually that's overkill. There's overhead involved in that. And ultimately, even though a lot of people say they want it, when they get to it, they end up just using the CSV technique. That's what most of our customers do. So yes, we can communicate with these other systems, and we do it all the time.
And someone asked, I think related to that, do you have a list of all the fields available per product title?
That's an interesting question. So yeah, actually we do, because we have the spec of what the data needs to look like to come into Royalty Tracker. So we do have a list of all the fields that we can capture.
Great. And as a reminder, everyone, make sure to put your questions in the chat, not the Q&A. It's easier for me to monitor them. Also, based on the user's experience, do you find there's a correct threshold of number of titles or ISBNs that people normally go with MetaComet? For example, 5 titles, 10.
That is a really good question, and I would say it really varies. We have a number of publishers that start with us in the very early stages. Like we've had several publishers start with us before they had any titles, and that's just because they had confidence they were going to grow, and they've been in the industry, and they know royalties is just going to slow them down and be a headache. We do have customers that start with us with 0 titles, maybe 5 or so that are about to be published. I would say if you're doing it manually right now, the complexity, it really starts to grow almost exponentially every time you add a title. And the number that we see where it gets really out of hand is about 20 titles or so, where our customers really start to struggle with it. So if you're doing it in Excel right now and you're wondering, what's a good threshold? I mean, ultimately it boils down to how much time you're spending, how confident you are in the numbers that everything's coming out correctly. but I would say a general rule for the threshold is maybe 15 to 20 titles is a point at which it really starts to get out of hand, and it behooves you to automate.
Great.
Is
Those are
that
the
it for
questions.
now?
Yeah, those are them for
All
now. Thank
right.
you.
Okay, great, great. I just another question I just thought of that I get a lot in terms of contract details is a lot of our customers ask, well, can we handle tiers? And the answer is yes. So, you know, like say ebook for the first 1,000 units, you pay X%. Then everything after that, you pay a different percent. You might have different tiers for hardcover, paperback, etc. So we can handle pretty much any kind of contract complexity that you have. So I'll stop again towards the end. So if you have any more questions, please just keep sending them into the chat, and Christopher will ask them as we get to it. You know, we talked about the 5 questions I was going to answer for you at the beginning. The final question is can you afford it? And I just maybe a little facetiously, but like to say, can you not afford it? Ultimately, it's really how do you value your time, and how much time are you obviously putting into it? How do you value the cost and burden of that stress and anxiety? Because I really, again, I've seen people really stressed out about this. But just, am I doing it right? Or, oh my God, I can't believe I have to do royalties again. And then related to that is the risk. You know, how do you value the risk? You know, I went to business school over 25 years ago, which I can't believe. Wow, that's a long time. 25 years ago. And I remember in my Finance 101 class, there's this concept of a beta, they call it. It's just this factor that you use that you kind of multiply your revenue by, or some other dollar amount to calculate the dollar value of your risk, just so you can get some kind of a quantification of your risk. And you know, just conceptually, how do you value your risk? So again, how do you value your time, and how much time is it taking you? How much is that stress and that burden costing you? And then what is the cost of that risk? Let's talk a little bit about costs now. So our basic costs is to get started with Royalty Trackers, $350 a month for up to 50 titles, and then we charge a $1,000 setup fee. Now, as IBPA members, you get a 10% discount off of that monthly fee. So it brings it down to $315 a month. So you can save, you know, like $400 or so right there per year. And then a 20% discount on the setup fee, which brings that setup fee down to $800 to typically just to get started. You know, if you want, you know, so we can always do little custom things for you. That's extra, but most IBPA members don't need any of that stuff, and we can just get you up and running for that amount. And then, of course, as Christopher mentioned, we're offering a special bonus for all IBPA members who signed up for the webinar, where we'll give you your first 2 months free. This is what our customers tell us. Most of our customers tell us this. Well, you know, we're always asking, what kind of benefit are you getting out of Royalty Tracker? How much is it saving you? And anecdotally, they always say 90%. This particular customer of ours, Credo Reference, they're based out of Boston. Jill tracked her time for everything that she did, and she was spending 40 hours a month doing royalties. They happen to have monthly royalties, and they got it down to 4 hours per month. And in fact, she ended up delegating the task because it became so simple and straightforward that she didn't have to deal with it any longer. So we're almost done. Let me go back to EReads, that initial customer that I was telling you about at the beginning, that first customer of MetaComet and Royalty Tracker. So they were actually acquired by a company that also uses MetaComet and Royalty Tracker. So 20 years in, EReads is still using Royalty Tracker to automate their royalties. And the great part is it's just a part of their business process. It's not something they ever need to think about or worry about. They just load their sales in, their royalties are ready, and it's just a part of their everyday operations. It's no longer a pain point, a stress point, a big roadblock that they see ahead of them. Christopher, have any more questions popped in since we started?
Yeah.
This is
So,
it. This is going to be my last stop for questions. So
oh,
if
better
any of
get
you
it in,
guys have,
everyone, or else you'll never get your
yeah,
answers. Are
yeah,
there
yeah,
any
yeah.
standard APIs or connectors that help with automated data transfer from, excuse me, from and to MetaComet system without having to send and derive files from the system?
So that's a very good question. So we recently upgraded our platform. So if some of you may have seen old demos, you can see that it's all new. So in our new platform, we haven't yet built those direct connectors, but we're in the process of doing that. So within the next few months, we anticipate direct connections for sales, direct connections for payments. So immediately today, they're not yet in there as they were in our old system, but they will be very soon. And if you sign on with us and need them, they'll go right to the top of the priority list. So they will be in there soon.
And then someone was asking, so you gave the per month for up to 50 titles. Then what is the cost like into the next stage?
Yeah, so the next level is up to 100 titles. It goes up to $450 a month. And that's not including your IBPA discount, so you'll take 10% off of that. And then the next threshold, I think, is up to 300 titles, which I believe, I'm working off of memory here, so I might not have that right, is $750 a month. Um, and then um, and then it goes up, and then there's the next threshold is I think up to 500 titles is I think 990 a month, and then up to 1,000 titles I think is 1190 a month. And again, these are all before your IBPA discount.
And is this pricing for one license, or can multiple people like within a company, uh, have a same like another license?
So that depends on which level you're at. So the 350 and the 450, you get one user, which all of our customers find to be adequate. If you need to, some of our users, I shouldn't say this, but some of our users just share credentials. But usually one person going in there is fine because that one person can generate any reports or whatever. And then once you get into the higher thresholds, we have 3 users. And actually, at the much higher thresholds, it goes up to 5 users, and you can add additional users if you need more for an additional fee. But I think we might have, we work with probably 120 customers. I bet we have 5 that pay for extra users. So most of our customers do well with the included number of users.
Okay, cool. Yeah, those are all the questions for now. Oh, what?
Okay.
Sorry, someone else said, is this cloud-based?
Yes, so it's all cloud-based. So all you need is a browser. Pretty much, we tested on Firefox, Chrome, maybe 1 or 2 others. Yeah, so it'll work in any standard browser.
And then for the training, they wanted to see if more than one worker or more than one employee can be part of that training so that more than one person knows how it all works.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, we'll also record the training sessions for you. We often do that, so you can have a copy of your specific training sessions. And just to even elaborate on that a little bit more, we have 4 standard training sessions that we uh, that we have our customers go through, and so we'll train you on contracts. We'll train you on how to set up those agreements, how to get your sales into the system, how to deal with your royalty period is the third at the end of the royalty period, how to generate the statements and send them out. And then we have a 4th training session, which is just we'll show you all the reports that we think you'll benefit from, and then we'll show you any other features in the system that we think you'll benefit from. And we can record all of those, and we very often do.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Christopher, and thank you, everybody, for those questions. One other question that often comes up is online royalty statements. And I didn't show it to you guys, but we do have the ability to have online royalty statements. So your authors can just log in right into royalty track, actually into, it used to be called the author portal. We're coming out with a new version of that though. So if any of you are familiar with our authorportal.com, it just puts your statements right up in the author portal, and your author can go online and view their statements online. That you can share contracts with them online as well. So you can share anything with them online in the author portal, actually. So I often get that question, so I just thought I'd address it here. So there is online access to the royalty statements. So just to finish up, as Christopher mentioned at the beginning, if you'd like to schedule a demo or learn more, please feel free to reach out to Suzanne Albert. She's our Director of Business Development. Her email's up here. We'd be happy to set up a demo for you or just talk more about your needs. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time as well. Just to reiterate, your IBPA member benefit, so you get a 10% off of the monthly fee and a 20% off of the setup fee. And again, if you're an IBPA member and you're on the webinar, signed up for the webinar, you can get 2 months free. Again, you have to get back to us with your desire to do that by March 31st. And if you're not a member, I very strongly encourage you to join. We've been associate members for years. An amazing organization, the just great resources, great people. The PubU event every year is fantastic, full of energy and learning. Otherwise, I'd like to thank everybody for attending. I really appreciate the opportunity to show you this, and we'd love to work with you. So please feel free to reach out.
Yeah, and I wanted to clarify about the 2 months free. So Suzanne had said it would be till February 15th. But you're saying it is till March 31st?
Oh, well, you know what? Suzanne was probably right, but since I just said March 31st, it extended to March 31st.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look at that. Getting free stuff.
Yeah.
Let's do it till November. No.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fantastic. We appreciate that. And as a reminder, this video is being recorded right now. So David, I know he gave a lot of information. So you can I'll send you sometime maybe by Friday this video, and you can rewatch it if you missed something or need to go back over something. Plus, David was very kind. Some of the slides he gave to me, so I'll be emailing that out to y'all in that same email. Unless someone has any last questions, I can't tell you how much, David, I appreciate you being here today, but also just in general, I mean, it's very generous, the member benefit that you give, and I know our members really appreciate it, and it's nice to know that there's something like this that exists, because it is a headache, and I know math and accounting can be quite overwhelming. So if you have trouble with all that, your business solves all of that, so thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Christopher. It was a real pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. All right. Well, everyone, I'm going to stop recording. And everyone, we really appreciate you for being here. And if you have any questions, again, we already shared David's email, so you can also reach out to him directly or me as well. Thank you again for watching.